Good Sunday morning and welcome to Rochester in Focus. I'm Lynette Adams. Coming up on the show today, an empowerment expo for women who want to become entrepreneurs. It's coming to the Floriano Riverside Convention Center at the end of the month. We'll tell you all about it and how you can attend. Also, I talk with someone you may remember. Natasha Alford, a former Rochester television news reporter, has gone on to do big things, among them write her memoir. We'll talk with her about American Negra. And finally today, loneliness. It's a problem for just about every group of people. We're going to talk with the leader of Compere, a volunteer organization, and we're going to talk about the need in our community. Well, Dr. Mary Bisbee Burrows is the founder of Legacy Drama House, a beautiful and unique performance arts venue in Rochester. She is a successful businesswoman who is ever eager to share the keys to her success and invited a powerhouse group of successful women of color to join her. The result, the Economic Empowerment and Entrepreneurship Expo, happening at the end of the month. And Dr. Bisbee Burrows is joining us this morning, along with Narsha O'Mealy. O'Mealy has found success as a hairstylist and now real estate investor. Ladies, welcome this morning. Nice to have you.
Thank you, Lynette. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
I am just excited to hear about this expo because there's a long list of things that you will be accomplishing in a weekend. Let's talk about the expo. First, tell me what gave you this idea?
Well, what gave me the idea, Lynette, is that thank you so much for sharing about me being a business owner, but I discovered that even though, I'm this educated individual, I have all these different degrees, I still struggle. And so I'm like, okay, if I'm struggling and I have a certain level of sophistication, if you will, socially, if I'm struggling, I know that my counterparts that aren't as resourceful will also be struggling too. So I thought, you know what, how about I put something together so that we all can benefit? And that's how the expo was born. So this is our second year. So last year I just reached out to women, some I knew, some I didn't, and said, hey, this is the ideal that I have. Would you like to be on the panel? And so they agreed, and the community got behind it in such a way that was really surprising to me. So much so that we had almost 300 women last year show up. And so it definitely shows a need within the community. But there's a trickle-down effect. And so one of the things that I always say is that even though as women of color, we're very talented, oftentimes we lack the resources to propel us forward and bring our business to a higher level and scale. And so, so that's another reason that the expo is important, but it also feeds the economy of the local community as well.
Well, let's talk about the two of you. You are successful in your own rights, and you will be sharing some of that success with the women. Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yes. So for myself, I've worked for the government for the last 20 years, but I've also owned the Legacy Drama House for the last 6 years, along with two of my sisters. And I volunteer extensively throughout the community, and my passion really is empowering women. And so I do that both professionally as well as personally. And so this is like my baby. And so I invited Narsha to come along. So this year she's one of our panelists.
That's right. You're going to be on the panel. Tell us a little bit about your background.
So yes, I am excited to be on the panel this year, and I started out as a cosmetologist at Slade Beauty Bar, which is the salon that I now own. And I always wanted to do something to give back to the community, so I figured out eventually that I could use some of my experience with interior design and stuff like that and create spaces that I can offer places to stay for people who are coming into Rochester. And I eventually started creating spaces, and now I offer Airbnbs and rental spaces in properties that I own in real estate investing.
Wow. So talk about what you will be sharing. You will be on the panel, that is. Talk about what you will be sharing with the women who come to this event.
So there's a wide variety of women on the panel, from real estate, such as Narsha, to even mortuary science.
We get it.
You got it. Yeah, from her to, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think who else is on there. It's just a wide conglomerate of women.
I saw a lot of powerhouse women, as I mentioned, the local business leaders as well as
Yes.
people in government,
Yes.
just about everywhere.
Yes, yes.
I saw lovely Warren on that list, you know, others who are going
Yes.
to be speaking.
Yeah, so there's a variety of women that will be participating, all with diverse and dynamic backgrounds, with each something to give. So one of the things that I always tell ladies that are in the audience, whether you're a budding entrepreneur or if you already own your own business, even you can come even if you want to know how to develop and expand your financial portfolio, such as inertia, right? So you may not want to own a business, but maybe you want to purchase property, maybe turn it into an Airbnb. That might be a good tip or strategy for you, or even how to invest, how to make your life insurance grow, right? So it's just a wide variety of dynamic women that will be on the panel. But one of the things I also want to share is that we're also going to announce the finalists for the Legacy Changemaker Award.
Right.
And so so the community nominated over 80. They had over 87. We received over 87 nominations,
Wow.
and out of those 87 nominations, we narrowed it down to 5 wonderful women. And I always say all the women were wonderful that was nominated, but we decided to narrow it down to those 5. So those 5 are invited along with their family and friends. And to meet the criteria of a change maker, one has to be a businesswoman, or she's using her business, she has to be a business owner, or she is using her community servitude to better the community. And so we have some dynamic women for that as well. So we're really excited about that. And so the community has jumped into that too.
I want to talk about some of the challenges of forming a business and keeping a business strong. Maybe you can share something quickly, challenges that you have found in starting your businesses and staying in business that you hope to pass along, maybe things you've learned.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, Anisha.
Some of the things that I do want to hopefully talk about at the Expo is the importance of credit, financial literacy, budgeting, and just making sure that you're staying on top of all of the foundational things in the business and the back end, making sure that everything is together so you can move forward and build upon that. Because as you scale, if that foundation isn't, correctly put together, then eventually things can get a little challenging. So you want to make sure that the foundation is solid when you're getting into property ownership or even just owning a business. You want to make sure that your credit and everything, behind the scenes is solid.
All right.
Great.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but we want to tell women how they can take part in this. The Economic Empowerment and Entrepreneurship Expo is from 11 to 4, Saturday, March 30th. It's all day. It's happening at the Joseph A. Floriano Riverside Convention Center downtown. And to register, go to dramalegacyhouse.com and register for the event. How much is
It's
it?
$90.
$90, and it's going to be a day full of learning, growing,
Yes, shopping, music,
shopping even,
food,
yeah.
and they should wear their blazers.
Yes.
Blazers.
Okay.
Blazers and bling.
Yes.
Blazers and bling. I like that. I wish I'd known. I would have
Yes.
brought my blazer and bling. Thank you so much for
you.
joining
Thank
us.
you.
It's going to be a great time.
We're excited.
All right, nice to have you. Well, coming up, you may know her face. She was a local reporter. Now she's known nationally as a political analyst. Natasha Alford has written her memoir about life in America, living between 2 worlds and 2 cultures. That conversation when Rochester in Focus returns. Welcome back. You may remember the name Natasha Alford. She started her career in Rochester as a broadcast journalist. She has since gone on to do great things. Most recently, she released her memoir. It's called American Negra. I worked with Natasha, and we would often talk about growing up in Syracuse. We met again over Zoom to talk about her experience as a woman who is both Black and Puerto Rican. So let's talk about your book. But before we get there, just bring people in Rochester up to speed with what you've been doing.
Wow. So it's been some years since I was a reporter in Rochester, New York. Rochester gave me my start in the TV business, and I'm forever grateful. I now serve as a CNN political analyst. You can see me on the news, usually in the mornings, covering the biggest stories in politics. And I'm also an anchor for the Griot, where we cover African-American entertainment, culture, and politics as well. So it's really just been a dream come true, coming to New York City, making this media dream happen really just on a mustard seed of faith. And that's what my book, American Negra, is all about. It's about the journey to find my voice, both as an American citizen, but also as a journalist and storyteller.
Well, let's start right there and talk about your book. I know that it's your memoirs and it talks about your life. Give people a sense of your life growing up and a little bit of your life to this point, actually.
American Negra tells the story of a young girl growing up in upstate New York, and that's me. I come from two different cultures. My father is African American, my mother is Puerto Rican, and I wanted to tell the story of how those two communities ended up in upstate New York. It's a story of migration, going to the North with hopes of the American dream. And I talk about the struggles of trying to navigate an underfunded public school system, how I was able to go to Harvard University, but also after Harvard, some of the ups and downs of figuring out what I should do with my life. And I think it's a story that relates to, is very relatable to many young people who are trying to find their way, who don't always know what they should be doing for work, but also how to make work meaningful to them. And so this is why I've written my memoir in my mid-30s, even though I'm still pretty young, because I want to give young people a blueprint for how to step out on faith and how to recognize their own voice and what matters to them.
I know that you also, as much as you want to teach, you want people to unlearn some things or you want to dispel some myths, right?
Absolutely. This is the reality of growing up in America. We have a complex history. Sometimes it's taught well, other times we brush over some of the more difficult subjects. And so I want to unpack some of the complexities around race, ethnicity, and nationality, and help people to understand that there's diversity even within groups that we think we know. There's diversity within the Black community, and also there's diversity within the Latino community, which has Afro-Latinos, right? Black people who live at the intersection of being Black and Latino. And so I wanted to show that beautiful diversity and also help us to understand places where we still struggle. I think it's important that we root out racism, and particularly that we root out anti-Blackness. And it can exist even in communities of color, as well as colorism, which privileges certain people as being more worthy of attention, more worthy of representation. And so I tackle some of these hard subjects. I try to make it accessible, and I do it by sharing history, overlooked history, history that many people may not know about upstate, about the African diaspora, about slavery. And so all these really complex topics, I hope to add a personal touch by interweaving my personal story.
I found it interesting, a comment that you made, which was, we're told we have to be twice as good, but that does something to our psyche. Talk about that.
This story really unpacks some of the pressures on high achieving kids of color, right? We often see the story of, a young person, they get into an Ivy League school and everyone is cheering them on and happy for them. But there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. There's a feeling that if you're a young person of color, particularly a young Black person in America, you have to work twice as hard and you can't disappoint anyone because you're fighting against stereotypes. You're fighting against assumptions about your intelligence and your abilities. And so I think it's important that as much as we praise young people for achieving and overcoming the odds, that we also let them know it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be human. That is how you grow. And so rejecting that perfectionism, that cage of perfectionism, which is what I call it, is part of the goal of this book. So I hope it's inspirational and also freeing in that regard.
Let's talk about the timing of this book. It seems like it's perfect timing as we head towards an election in November, a presidential election.
I certainly feel that way. I think that, we're hearing a lot about issues around race, around immigration in particular. And we know that often the African American and Latino community has been lumped together. You hear that phrase, Black and brown. But I do believe there are some tensions there, and particularly with immigration that is coming from the border of Mexico, we're starting to see that there's certain sort of political forces that are maybe trying to pit groups against each other. And so this book hopefully helps people to understand some of the history of that, some of the moments in which different ethnic groups work together politically for unified goals, but also moments in which they were turned against each other, right? And so hopefully we can learn lessons from those moments. So it's very relevant to the election. I am a political analyst. Although the book doesn't get into necessarily the politics of the day, it helps us to understand the politics of race in America.
And you can meet Natasha this afternoon. She's scheduled for a book signing at 2 o'clock at the Barnes & Noble bookstore in Pittsford Plaza. That's on Monroe Avenue. And Rochester in Focus will be right back. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. April is Volunteer Month, and one organization that needs volunteers, Compeer. It recognizes an ongoing challenge that affects our Monroe County community year-round. One in particular, mental health struggles and feelings of loneliness continue to plague our neighbors. This type of isolation affects social connections, job opportunities, and tragically increases suicide rates. And joining us this morning to talk about this is the Executive Director of Compeer, Sarah Passamonte, and Gabe Perez, the lead program coordinator. Thank you so much for joining me to talk about this. Loneliness, it is an ever-present concern in our community, right?
Yes, and thank you so much for having us to talk about that. I think we've talked about statistics around mental health issues for a really long time. We think that 1 in 4, 1 in 5 is still grossly underestimating the number of people, not only in our area but in the world who are experiencing this. And post-pandemic, the needs have increased, or people have become more aware of their mental health challenges, something that we may have been able to brush off as just a bad day or a bad month. It becomes a bad year, it becomes a bad decade for some people, and time just flies so fast, right? And when you find yourself in a place where you need help and then you can't get it because now the waiting lists are out the door, right, for traditional therapy, that's where a place like Compeer can come in and kind of supplement that need.
Well, for people who don't know, tell us what Compeer does.
So Compeer has been around for 50 years. We were founded in the Rochester community, which a lot of people don't know. And it came about really at a time where deinstitutionalization was happening. So we had a friendly visit program at what was then the State Psychiatric Hospital, which was full to the brim. Because back then in the 60s, 70s, there were so many people there that didn't need to be, but we had nowhere else to have people live, right? So our founder discovered this small program called Adopt a Patient and got involved and realized the need amongst people with mental health conditions was so great. And when they were coming out of the institution, the need became even greater because now we're in a community we don't know how to live in.
Right.
So through the years, the program became more community-based than anything else. We started serving children back in the 80s, and this is all done by the power of volunteers who just have that capacity to be a friend, a companion, someone to go to the grocery store with, someone to toss a baseball back and forth with. It's so simple, but it works.
Gabe, talk about the challenge of finding volunteers or mentors. You are working with people all day. You've got 162 people still on the waiting list. Talk about the challenge.
Sure thing. So after COVID, our volunteer numbers really took a hit. We don't see that interaction human to human anymore because of the big scare after the pandemic, and really just finding volunteer opportunities is difficult when we have this massive population of college students and they aren't always able to commit to that year commitment. So we're trying to find ways to work with them in order to have that younger population take part and really participate in being a change to the youths and the adults in our programs.
For people who say, I don't have a lot of time to volunteer, what would you say to them?
We have several different programs that you can volunteer in. I mean, we have that person-to-person, one-to-one. It's 4 hours a month for a minimum of 1 year, but we also have our Compeer Calling and eBuddies program. That's one contact a week. That's a text message, that's an email, that's just checking in, seeing how they're doing. It at most takes 15 minutes out of your week, and it's...
And as I mentioned at the beginning of, it's really every group of people. that could use companions, right?
Yeah, this isn't the traditional Compeer of 1990 where, you know, you need this clinical mental health diagnosis from your private therapist who's going to get you over to Compeer, from the clinic to Compeer. We do accept referrals from primary care physicians who seem to be tackling their fair share of the mental health crisis as well, whether it's through medication management or just trying to be that provider at a time where people might be waiting for different types of treatment.
Talk a little bit about the difference that a mentor can make. Just even those few hours a month that you just mentioned, what kind of a difference do you notice that it makes?
Sometimes it's just having that person who you can talk about your day with. So whether your day was great or your day was not so great, I know when I have something happening to me, I can tell 20 people I'm going to be on the news today, and that's exciting. Or I have, a handful of really close friends that I can say things are really tough right now. But for so many of our clients, they don't even really have that one person that they can share this with. So having someone just to walk the journey with, and like I said, it can be as simple as, someone might have anxiety about going to the grocery store. On a Saturday morning, that could be challenging for just about anybody. If you're at the top of your week and you're like, I don't even have it in me to get there right now, having somebody that can do that task with you can make all the difference. And then we've certainly seen long-term. We have matches. We call them matches, a mentor, a mentee, or a friendship pair. We have matches that have been going for over 30 years in the program because it just becomes this organic piece of what you do in your week.
Wow, and it's really simple to volunteer. All you have to do is go to compeerrochester.org and sign up. It's that simple, and your presence could make such a difference. Rochester in Focus will be right back.